Hello again, and welcome back, my friends, to Hambage's Hardcore Vanilla Minecraft. We're ready to jump back into business, and can't wait to get started. So glad to have you along for the ride, and hope you enjoy it. Let's go and get our slide out of the way and get this world launched back up again. Elcano, here we come. So we're diving forward. Hope everyone is doing well out there in audience land. For myself, it's much later the following day. Had a nice little break. Yes, the 4 episodes of this world previously have all come together as we set up our world in one day of play. There was a break, some early day sessions, and then some later in the evening. But otherwise, that was kind of continuous. And today I'm coming back to it. Just settling back in. Those skeletons had a little advantage in being in the lake, but this is the gentleman I would like to take down. He is a husk, and he is a desert variant of the there we go, a husk. He's a desert variant of zombies. They will, kind of pack swarm and behave much like zombies. However, they, both can form if you spend a night out in the desert, and that's cool enough. But the husks will hit you with I don't know if it's a nausea or a hunger effect. It again, like I've spoken of previously in the some past episode, we talked about how the hunger effect, I've never really known, it starts flashing, it makes your food look weird, gives you another, to me they look like green olives on toothpicks kind of sticking up above the food pops there. But I've never really had a firm grasp on what bad thing they're doing to us as they do. Now, what we'd really just, I was kind of covering there. I'll be clear about it. I didn't really recall. I knew that we'd put these stone axes in with the intent to use them up. I wasn't sure exactly, all right, we were going to do trees, but we don't have any trees planted, and the skeletons kind of threw me off. It was that these we thought had grown up, and sure enough, they have. So we'll take down our 3 dark oaks. Those had been a highlight of our previous episode, where we had gone on a little boat adventure to see what was out on the horizon, in addition to finishing up our stairway. So lots of good stuff going on in this world. I am always saddened. Look, you put time and thought and some amount of effort. It's it's a computer game. It's not like we're out there breaking rocks ourselves with a pickaxe of some kind. So the effort is pretty minimal, but you do grow attached to any of the worlds. Even poor Hondo that we only had for 1 episode yesterday. It had an appeal all its own. It had that giant taiga biome, and the villages we'd already found. We had picked out a home spot, and we're just getting going, and boom, it was gone. And we don't want that to happen here, but every time you see, it's that, and I know it's corny, and in this case, I'm not trying to be overly religious about it, but there's a saying among church-going folks that every time God closes a door, He's opened up a window, and supposed to, be that silver lining in everything type philosophy that comes through. And, it's one of those things that for me is, all right, look, let's just back off a little bit. It's everything always doesn't have to be great, but in these cases, I think some similar mentality really does fit, because each time you start anew in Minecraft, you gonna every world is gonna have stuff. You're never just gonna get put on a one block spire in the middle of the ocean and be left to swim. the The world will give you some things, and each have advantages. And we've already found that we have a good deal of advantages in this world. Some most we really haven't had time to fully utilize yet. But this is really teasing a lot of potential. The idea that we can have a zombie spawner raining a steady stream of zombies down to our mine floor to allow for easy cleanup. That's just spectacular. So lots of good. We also have two underwater temples that we had discovered, and that's certainly a nice thing. So again, just to reiterate, as we're waiting for these leaves to break down, and worlds are good. You're always going to find something good. That was the main gist of that story. We definitely got our window opened up. So good on the Minecraft gods to set us up with that. What I was getting to, though, was as we wait for these three remaining tree leaves to break down and grab up the saplings, when we'd done the same on our boat trip, we'd talked kind of about the wood returns. And here you can see, just by having these trees independent of a forest, we were running into some issues where we didn't have a lot of inventory space. There were a lot of variety of trees that were keeping all of the leaves from decaying, and so we were kind of waiting drop by drop to try to get saplings. Well, now we're fairly close. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that we could get 20, so we can already take our 3 trees to 5, and we've got 2 and a eighth of a stack of darkwood just from our kind of kickoff of the episode here, without really even having gotten started. So very good there. And I don't particularly have a need or a use for the darkwood yet. We haven't gone into a lot of projects. Our underground stuff, I really tend to shy away from the darkwood. When you're outside and it's bright, or you got an elevated structure, I think it's beautiful. I love it. But you're deep underground, and it's all artificial light. This, goes for the real world too. I definitely try to lighten up those naturally darker spaces, and then darken the brighter spaces above. So that's what we'll kind of do. I thought we had kind of come down this way before, and I don't remember if how much equipment we had when we had last visited, but I know we had decided that discretion was the better part of valor, and kind of beat a retreat. Well, we're moving along here, and I don't think we need to completely live our lives in fear anymore. We're still going to try to be a little cautious about it, but I think, hey there, Mr. Enderman. Hey, go fight the Enderman. Hey, did I just say go fight the Enderman? Or did I, hey, you see me? Very speedy. Alright. No need for this little pond back here. We're at the end of the cave anyway, so let's just get rid of it. We'll do just a bit of mining here. As I said, it was a hole in the ground. We were there, and as mentioned, I think we've done pretty well on wood already for this episode. But what it's just the falling arrow. It'll do it one more time here. Again, if you should have the remnants of an arrow fight above your head, and you break these out, when they fall, they do their damage again. So FYI, be aware on that. But here we're just doing a bit of gathering. I know we're fairly full of random bits. But we'll see what we can gather up. Oh, really? I was seriously wondering if it was even worth the effort to just come up and get these couple more pieces of coal, but we're here now. Hey! Okay, so Skelly's cleared out of there. Again, I kind of suspect that with all the caves we have around, these will eventually reconnect with the ones that we'd cleared over underneath the base. We're not that far away. But you don't necessarily know. This just further shows all the way down our stairway we were encountering bits of cave, and that just goes to show how much cave the world generated in this particular area, and it's not a bad thing at all. It makes these coal we'll always need, but it certainly makes all the early game iron easier to access by just being able to run around. If we've got stacks of it ready to go, then we don't have to worry about looking as hard for it in our diamond search, and we also don't really need to push too hard. I think we're gonna, as I was just talking about, I don't think we need to worry about stuff too much anymore. Let's make a little combat hole to take out this guy. There he is. Alright, come on. And no pearl. Well, fine. Be all stingy about it, Mr. Enderman. See if we care. So again, we've cleared that. We just want to be extra cautious. This could be where the creeper was, and he wouldn't necessarily have despawned, so there we go. Welcome back. And we've talked enough along the way about combat and critical hits and all that good stuff. But personally, and I don't know if I mentioned this, personally, I don't really worry about the criticals on creepers. I just much rather do that back and forth action where I'm hitting them with enough momentum to drive them into the distance, so their fuse, if you will slow down. Well, this torch is not ideal, but see, I just, if you get back, they will stop their sizzle and not explode. And yeah, you may need one less chop if you have a jump in the midst of that, but it can throw off that rhythm. And based on our recent experiences, we'll respect the potential damage of the creepers. So again, this is. I mean, frankly, I just saw the hole again and was like, hey, let's go ahead and go down there. We're not specifically hunting for resources, although it would be cool to see if and where this connects back into our already established mine system. And there again, our inventory is just kind of a wreck of random junk. We didn't even accomplish the mission of getting rid of all of our stone axes, I see. And I would imagine by the time we get done down here, it will at a minimum be nighttime, if not day again. So we'll sleep, go back up, maybe plant the saplings and get rid of the ones that we have. Let's get, five 4x4 trees. There's room for them there, and we don't need to carry this around. I think, coal is gonna quickly fill us up, and we don't know how much unexplored cave there is down here. So alright, there we go. One more there. I don't know why I'm being particularly cautious about the torch placement in here. In a cave system like this, where we already know that this is our way out, just as a reminder, let's do that. We're not making this or hollowing this out as a part of our building or as any larger system. We just, kind of exploring and seeing, but it really, once, you got it established and verified, it doesn't matter if it's not completely lit, if, sporadically mobs can spawn in it. We should be equipped to come, in this type area and deal with some of that stuff. Now this, if you remember, on our island up on the surface, we're kind of, where we entered, we're kind of on the corner of the island. We'd planted some dark oak trees, and then up, diagonally behind us, I think to the southeast, although I still haven't really got a good grasp of direction in this game, which of the cardinal directions point which way. But up in the corner, in the distance is our base, and you can kind of see the front of it and the little courtyard plaza type area that we've effectively hollowed out between the two rooms and the doors on those that are at angles. But, if you kind of catty corner between those two and out on across the end of the island there, we have the ravine. And some of this may be cave outgrowth of that larger ravine system. So we know we had at least one little elevated portion looking down on that, but not a lot more. This is cool. enjoyed getting to find all this stuff. But let's go see if we can. It's either dawn or dusk. I don't know which, but let's see if we can't make it home before real trouble ensues. So yeah, the ravine is kind of over that way. Home is right back here, and our desert village is out beyond into the distance that way. So lots of cool stuff we've already found. We can certainly. I talked about. Oh yeah, we should plant those dark oaks. Totally spaced it with the. Oh, that is sunrise. So I'm surprised we didn't see any monsters hanging around out there. That's weird. Anyway, so there we go. Now we've at least got a stock of our two types of saplings, and pulled down some other decent loot as well. I think we can, at least for now, stash the bread. Food, again, has got to be a priority. We've kind of skated along ignoring it for so long now that I think the time is coming that we can no longer just pretend that randomly going out and finding shipwrecks for a few pieces of cooked fish or, pole fishing for the rest is really going to do it. We've got to get those mechanics of farming and some of that going in the background here. Even though that's something we've already worked on heavily in our previous world, you can't have long-term success if you don't have some of those basics in place. And we can hopefully, strike a good balance between the farms, the exploration, and the stuff that we want to get established down below. So we'll work on that. But the good news here is our tool use is kind of working us through the supply of stone tools that we had, and in expectation that we'll get there, we'll make our next stone or iron axe. And just one more pick here, and then last but not least, we'll make a whole new stack of torches. And we do seem to generate a good crop of spiders and wandering traders above our head, don't we? I think we may have mentioned at the end of the last episode that we wanted to get out there and do some boat adventuring, and I do definitely. But since we're fresh to the world and it's a new day, let's at least make some progress. Now, they don't have leads, so that's already the guy we've got. So I think, at a minimum, we're going to take the top off this hill to here, if not all the way down. We'll kind of see how the land lies. I don't want to do completely excessive digging, but we need to get a plain leveled out a little bit so that we can do more of our farming. And I think, if this side opens up to be our farming area, we can do some of the, I kind of hinted to it with the pumpkins and berries in the Susanna Bean world. We can maintain some of those more unkempt areas around our area. In kind of that whole arc, I'm thinking, and who knows, it all subject to change very much. But even on the little hilltop here, if we decide to keep that fairly natural, or even improved nature, and when I say that, I think kind of along the lines of different ideas come to mind, but certainly the mentality of some of the European manor houses and things, where they had lots of land and wanted to keep it preserved, but they also wanted, in that era, the idea of man guiding nature and helping to idealize a space was much more prominent. Now the current view is that we think nature has underlying systems and beauty all its own, and when you go in and tweak that too much, you unfailingly kind of pull it away. But you've got to remember that, and this is a tangent, but a thought that I don't think many people really appreciate until they hear it in context. But as currently vogue as it is now to laugh off those ideas and say, oh, for all our technology, in the information age and all that, we were fools 100 years ago to think that how could we ever dare to think that we could improve on nature. Well, that's, in a way, that's certainly true, and I certainly, I agree with that to an extent, but you also have to step back and realize that, for me, an example is dogs. Most of the dogs that we recognize today as breeds, a poodle or a German Shepherd or a Golden Retriever or a Lab, all those common Fido sitting on your rug over there watching you play, all those, most of the variety of breeds of dogs that we have come up since the year 1800. They're all really new, and when you think about, you look at them and you go, oh yeah, you can see this dog evolved for this particular task. Take a dachshund, the wiener dogs as an example. They have that elongated body and long foreclaws because they were bred to go down into small burrows and hunt. I don't know what the particular animal was in Germany, but whether it was voles or gophers. I don't know what all burrowing animals they have over there, but it's hedgehogs, whatever they might have been going after when they before, or even the reason that the dachshund came about was in a time of the industrial age and the Enlightenment, kind of Victorian era. It was call it the age of discovery around two. We as humans and Western European colonial, kind of arrogance, I won't shy away from that. Certainly there was an attitude that we are bringing reason and culture to the rest of the world through our munificent empires, and we need to colonialize these places so that we can share what we've learned of the world. And they, as disrespectful to the indigenous populations of most of the world, as that truly is, and to think, oh yeah, sure, we're going to come in and, teach the European languages around the world for literacy and, bring more ideas of modern medicine and what a city should look like and dress and all that kind of stuff. They to whatever degree you think that is right or wrong, and their lack of respect for the original inhabitants' cultures, because in some cases, they full on describe them as savages, and there were a limited few of the people on the various expeditions of discovery and those kind of things who tried to observe first and judge second, but that, much like today, but far less than people would, people today think, oh yeah, it takes a little bit to look at the world coldly and rationally and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to put as much review on my own culture as I do on any others that I observe, and I'll try to judge them fairly against one another. We think that's hard to do today, and takes, it's kind of one of those arrogance of youth things. As you reach your teens, and you personally learn that the world is bigger than what you'd known as a child, and that not everything you grew up believing is entirely true. And I'm not just saying that for, the Western European background. That goes for everybody, right? You don't get exclusivity on right or indignity always. That's a part of growing up in the human experience, is that you find out that in the innocence of your youth, you weren't presented a full view of the world and how it really worked. You were presented that view that adults come to an agreement on as adults, that kids don't really need to know all this kind of stuff. So when you reach adulthood, or young adulthood in particular, you find and go through a period of kind of the feeling of being betrayed by the world. That I was under the impression that things operated a particular way, and whether you came up in a particular religious tradition or not, that these were the answers exclusively, and right was right, and it all worked. And while I'm not here to describe personal faith of anyone, and I have my own. I'm not going to get into it. This is not a religious stream, and I'm not, a lot of people that are religious wouldn't consider me particularly religious myself. They would scrutinize my beliefs, but I'm okay with that, and I'm not here to really go into those. I'm more just here to think things through of myself, and fill what's basically dead air with just my own thoughts that I often have when I play this game. Anyway, what I was coming around to and cycling back is, as we grow up, we kind of realize that, hey, this world has more facets than we were aware of, and that's where the old are wise, because while there are exceptions, and certainly you can become old and feel disenfranchised from your own culture, that it's been steered away from what you had fought for or valued. But by and large, experience will continue to show that all those things that we ally ourselves as early on, whether it's race or community or a school team mascot, the tribes that we associate with in our youth, life, hopefully, I would wish as much as anything else that in everyone's life they get that opportunity to make a true friend that shatters that image, that you find someone, whether they're, it doesn't have to be a romantic thing, and if it is, cool, but, it certainly doesn't have to be, but you find a friend or just a caring person, a mentor, and in a career type thing, somebody from a completely different culture, that whether you care to admit it or not, you kind of get thrust together, where previously, even if you had bothered to say hello or how you doing if you passed on the street, it would have been one of those passing kind of, I don't really care how you're doing, but I want to be friendly, and you seem like you got a nice face and all that, so I'm just going to say hi. It doesn't mean that you're judging them, but, it may not have gravitated to that person. And when you truly make those friendships and those lives, and particularly if if there's something that challenged your own childhood notions, that's exceptional. I think that's so cool because it reinforces how much we're all human. Well, anyway, again, I know this is wandering, but we're getting back to improving the landscape here. And I think nowadays we judge very harshly the views of, from anywhere from 250 to even 100, but more 150 years ago, that man is the rational and principled caretaker of nature, and that certainly couples with a European view of Christianity, that Adam was put in the Garden of Eden, and he was going to be the caretaker, and the traditions of Noah and all that, and basically God created the world for man to use to worship God, and it was man alone that God gave the intellectual capacity to actually understand and refine from the base of base nature, and that's phrasing that was certainly popular any number of years earlier, that was often applied to indigenous peoples. And they're subject to their base natures, and this idea that to be saved or salvation, you have to rise above your base instincts and not function as a natural or worldly. Think of the connotations of the phrase worldly when used to describe a person's behavior or something. It's not positive, right? When you're worldly, you're caught up in the here and now. You may be materialistic. You may be overly prone to the kind of the smutty sexual, right? The red light districts, or the naughty movies and that kind of stuff. So you didn't really want to be worldly, and the idea of these gardens and things was nature was put out there as something for man to refine and improve upon. And now that's almost a cultural taboo to think that we would dare to try to modify nature. But the point that I try to maintain as a person who studied a lot of history is, don't forget, that those same people are going back home to greet their little Pomeranian that hops up on the couch when they get home. And all of those bred dogs and the attributes that make them so appealing to people as pets, and that can be any attribute of a dog that you find in a breed that particularly matches your lifestyle and your personality. Whether it's the gentleness or the hunting skills of a Labrador Retriever, whether it's the high energy and the alertness of a Schnauzer that is small and not particularly fierce, but will constantly monitor its surroundings and alert you with its bark if it thinks that there's something you need to be aware of. They make spectacular watchdogs. They may not be the intimidation of a Doberman or a Shepherd, but in terms of assaulting an intruder, but their watchfulness is second to none. Whether it's some of the easily maintained coat that's glossy and luxurious of a Cocker Spaniel, or some, I already said, but like a Bichon Frise, some of those kind of breeds that are purely made for show. And when you understand that it was that that beginnings of understanding of heredity that, frankly, were coupled with the timeliness of Charles Darwin and his expedition on the Beagle. That he took something that was already being manipulated, and this isn't particularly new when it was applied to dogs so much. Herdsmen have been doing it for ages. Biblically, there's a reference to. Oh man, I'm gonna show my lack. It was. Who's the brother that went to find his wife? He worked for her dad, and married both women. Was it Abraham? Father Abraham? 7 sons had Father Abraham? Forgive me. It's Old Testament, and one of the similar stories of the patriarchs of Israel who, desiring Rebecca as his wife, he met her at a well, and what at the time was not city life, but her father had may have been nomadic, may have had an area of land that he dominated, but her father was a wealthy herder of, I believe it was sheep, maybe cattle, or maybe both. And when traveling, he met this man's daughter at the well and said, "Okay, I really like your daughter. In the custom of the time, I'd like to marry her. How do we make that happen?" And father says, "All right, you got to work for me for 7 years. That'll work." So he agrees. He signs on and he says, "All right, 7 years you got me, and then I get to marry your daughter." And, okay, whatever they did, they shook hands or struck a bargain, and they were on their way to being family. So 7 years goes by, and they go in. Probably not a church at that point. I mean, formal Judaism hadn't been established yet. It was just these guys out who occasionally were approached and spoken to by Yahweh. So. Anyway, he does his term of work. Wedding day arrives. They go out under the canopies, or find a grove of trees where it's nice and cool. Maybe have a big fancy meal. She comes out all veiled and bedecked. They go through the ceremony, and he's all happy. Probably they hang out with the family. All congratulations, and then. Eventually, you get to the point where he gets to lift the veil and see his wife, and it's not the girl he wanted, it's her sister. And rage, right? Flies into a rage, goes tearing over to lay into his now father-in-law. Goes, what's the deal, dude? I couldn't have been more clear. It was Rebecca I wanted, not. I'm terrible with names, like I said, pop culture or anything. I know the story clearly, but I wanted Rebecca. I didn't want her older sister so-and-so. And you now have tricked me into marrying so-and-so. And the dad says, "Look, man, I'm really sorry, but you either do or didn't know the customs of our people, but I can't marry my younger daughter until I marry my older daughter. And my older daughter, wasn't married, so this is the way it has to be." And it's not real clear, as I recall. I don't think the older sister was ever considered a real catch. That doesn't go into, at the time, whether that was purely based on looks or if there were other things, but she certainly was a willing wife. And the way it played out was he agreed on that if the father would let Laban, I think was the dad's name, if Laban would let him marry and maybe this was, Joseph had the coat of many colors, right? Was it Jacob that was his dad? Jacob and Esau were the twins, so no. Who's in between there? Anywho, maybe it was Abraham. You guys will have to tell me. Sarah was Abraham's wife. I get lost in the individual names. It's been a little too long. Maybe I'll have to refresh my memory. Sorry, we're so deep in this tangent, but so he had to marry the older daughter first, and strikes the bargain that says, I'm going to marry the younger daughter at the same, probably this very night. Maybe she said, hey, look, I want to plan my own wedding day. We're not going to share an anniversary, so just cool your jets. It'll be a week. But the effect was that he married both daughters, and that was not a deal in Old Testament. Ironically, there's a lot of stuff in Old Testament biblical sense that Christians persecuted other people for along the way. So lots of inconsistency, and that speaks to the part I was talking about growing up. You find that not everything is consistent or as black and white as we would like to imagine as children. But the result of that story was he agrees to sign on and work for 7 more years if he can marry Rebecca that very day, night, wedding, holiday, whatever the actual timing was. They got married, and both wives bore him children, and he did pretty well by it. But Laban, the father, decided after 14 years of having him work, having his now son-in-law work with him, he's doing really well. He's like, man, this guy works far better than any of my hired help. I don't want to get rid of him. We're doing too good to just throw all that away. Let's keep this going a little bit. So he says, hey, we worked together 14 years. We're doing really well. What can I get you to do to stay on for another 7-year employment cycle? And you can kind of imagine, depending on how old you are, but most people can kind of imagine, by the time you've lived with your in-laws for 14 years, it's time to get your own place, right? And yeah, they're nomads, whatever, but he's kind of reaching that age where he's like, I got 2 wives. By this point, I'm sure he's got a whole bunch of kids, and he says, I think it's about that time where we part ways. Not that I'm not grateful. It's been a good ride, and I'm glad to be a part of the family and all that. But time for me to make my own family name and go out, and gets a pretty good bargaining position out of that, where it's the father Laban who is trying to get him to stay. And so, he can kind of just sit and go, well, I think we're going to pack our things unless you can convince me. And Laban comes back and says, well, I don't know, kind of name your price. What do you want? And eventually, as the story goes, he says, I will stay on for one more 7-year term. And at the end of that time, all you have to do is, you're effectively going to pay me now. I'm going to take all the spotted and speckled animals in your herds. And, at the time, and I'm not certain of this, I don't know 2,000-year-old, or at that point, 3 to 5,000-year-old Hebrew cultural idioms. But my understanding is that those would have been considered the impure or less desirable animals. Uh, Blemishes or marks of any kind in a world where diseases like leprosy could devastate humans, and blights and mange and all that kind of stuff. There's no real good treatment for that. So even more than you would get out of the images of like a Snow White or something, the idea of unblemished skin in people or in animals, anything like that, was really seen as a sign of favor and blessing. So it was almost a throwaway to Laban, and as a father-in-law, he's probably smiling. He's like, I get it. This kid's trying to do right by me, and he found out he's really happier having both my daughters as wives than just Rebecca, and now he's got them. He's kind of given me a break here. He's willing to stick around. Probably they're not quite ready to leave home yet, and he just takes it in. Well, the deal to only take the less desirable of his animals in a time when there wouldn't have been treatable currency, even at the time of crucifixion and the Roman occupation of the Holy Lands as a part of the larger Roman Empire. Money per se still was very uncommon. Most trade was done either in barter or terms of service such as these, or goods in kind, that kind of stuff. So this was what amounted to a very favorable bargain, because if Laban took his flocks that were unmarked and unblemished to a wandering merchant, our little villager here who likes to come by and trade us nothing, if he says, hey, I got these pure white sheep, and they're not striped or spotted or anything like that, that would have been seen as prime merchandise, and he would have gotten better trade, or whatever agreement they came to, he would come out pretty well. On the other side, his son-in-law would have struggled. If he saw wandering merchants, they're going to prefer the goods of anyone else as they come along. So he can basically read that offer as, yeah, I'm gonna take the bad stuff off your hands. I'm not setting up shop to become competition to you in a larger sense. I'm just gonna have enough for it'll feed me, and probably there's enough produce, if it's, and I don't know, a lot of this gets, our translations of biblical texts come via the King James version, and then further iterations out of Latin, and translations probably either into Greek first, and then on into Latin, where it was preserved for much of the history of the Western Catholic Church, and then eventually translated into German and French and English and all the other languages of the world these days. So, but you do get introduction. So when they say sheep and cattle, the like nativity scenes, they often will show, if you're in Wisconsin, they'll show the black and white heifer type dairy cows, and maybe in the Highlands of Scotland, you'll get the long shaggy sheep. People associate those with what they say. So when they even say sheep and cattle, they're not exactly the same animals that we may see here in Minecraft world, but they would you get the idea, right? They may be closer to oxen or something like that, or more goat-like than sheep, but they're going to provide some basic dairy sustenance. They're going to give a steady supply of meat, certainly, and by agreeing to take those animals that would be less appealing for trade, that would be seen as a sign that, hey, I'm content to feed my family and kind of live within your sphere of influence. Well, by the end of the 7 years, and very long-winded story, but I do enjoy thinking back through some of these. As you can see, I don't I don't constantly read back through the Bible. I have read pretty deeply, and I'll just tell people, if you're religious or not, one of the best ways to get some biblical founding without, listen, even as somebody who was raised in a Christian tradition, went to Sunday school and all that kind of stuff, there are definitely books of the Bible, and reading the Bible straight through is brutally difficult. I've made several attempts myself as a very avid reader, and usually Psalms will break me. It gets pretty repetitive, and if you're not breaking those up into digestible chunks, it's tough. And for most, it comes well before that, because in the Torah, which are the 5 original books of the Old Testament, the first 5, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Those tell some of the story I just related, and several others going back, going up to the point where Moses leads the Israelites out of Egypt and their captivity there, and they begin to function as this landless nation state, and leave off as they're on the brink of retaking Canaan, the promised land, which would become Israel. So those early books also contain the law, not included among them the 10 Commandments, but the law that was interpreted and established by Moses as an extension of that, and how these refugees from Egypt were now expected to show gratitude to the God that had rescued them. And this one doesn't even justify tying in, but for me, those are good. They're important literary and just cultural references to know. And if you've got some interest but have been intimidated by the depth and the language of the even the modernized versions of the Bible, which again have further interpreted the words that were originally there. But if even that is too much, I recommend strongly. It's called the Picture Bible, and I got a copy when I was probably a middle school age kid, and I actually gave one to my nephew when he was about that age. And it's kind of, for lack of a better word, it's comic book Bible, and it just deals with those kind of storied versions of the Old Testament. So you get the names and the stories of those characters, and kind of the chronological tale of how the Israelites, with whom that's who Jesus was raised up as a part of the cultural group of, when you get all that backstory. very quickly and easily digestible. It also does, as I recall, um, the rest of the Old Testament is well, no, actually, it goes all the way up because you get all the kings and the chronicles and all that. I think it just goes up to the prophets, and then it just kind of alludes to them in short bullet form, or just a couple pages. These were the prophets, and this was the particular time and message that each lived in, or what they did. So, highly recommended. As having said that, I really never got into comic books. One that I certainly have paged through a few times, and it is dog-eared and worn, but I still have it, and great refresh periodically, just to keep all the stories in mind as you go. And like I said, I'm not, many would consider me to be insufficient in faith, or in the practices of religion, and it makes me kind of sad. But we all have our own beliefs, and we have to live in accordance with them. But I won't deny my moral and spiritual upbringing, and how that remains a part of my life, even if I have grown to have a little more worldly in the best and worst senses of that word, identification that even if this is perfectly translated across the way, for me, there's, that doesn't mean that the other peoples of the world are any lesser, or that their faiths are any more tainted than our own. As I say that as a Western European Christian, and just get all the cards out there. Mine was of the Protestant faith, so further divergent from Catholicism. And I just, as a historian, I see a lot of that as there's a lot of human fingerprints on what so many people get so adamant about. They will break the hearts and minds of people that they claim to love by telling them that they have failed because of particular words in a particular version of a Bible that they are absolutely faithful, is the exact word of God. And I respect faith, and I think that there's a lot of strength to be drawn from it, and a lot of good comes out of it. As much as our social network type world would love to just scoff at it, don't scoff too hard, because at least among them, as much as you want to say about the Dark Ages church, it did preserve literacy, and while lots of books and things were burned along the way, it represented an educated path of living for a large number of people who may otherwise have had little to no use in society. Famously, it's the second sons of the royal and the wealthy and those kind of things who went to the church, because the first son would get all the land and the inheritance, and the second, would kind of, hey, we need something to do with you. So with a gift to the church, they would be given a life of relative refinement and prestige. So I'm not religious bashing, and I do maintain my own very personal and private faith. I'm not going to get into that, but I also can freely question the church and what we look at in a church, and say, yeah, faith may say that that's the word of God, but it's come from it's come through a lot of human hands to get to us, and usually when you become absolute about something, you're kind of weaponizing, and that's where I start to struggle a little bit. When you stop looking at the human being that you're alluding, professing to love, and I'm saying that in a pastoral sense. You love them, and you're about to do something particularly dramatic to them out of love, which is usually try to change the way they're living their life, or punish them for something, and you say, I have to do this to you because I love you and I don't want you to struggle. Well, when all of that is based on words on a page, which have, each time they moved between languages or versions, have been modified to use words that adapt to the culture that they're being presented to, and then they become codified in the length of time that they've been revered, and all of a sudden you can't change them unless it's approved by officialdom, and those changes then have further weight, so that they reflect what was desired or wanted by a particular group in power at a time. So grain of salt for everything, and I didn't want to really. I know you can get a lot of weird rants on YouTube. Mainly, I just want to say, look, there's a book out there. If if you've ever thought, hey, I'd like to better understand the biblical references in literature or in popular culture, or just I've got somebody who talks to me about it, and I want to be on a level footing. Great reference, comic book style, very easy to read and digest, and even though I've forgotten some of the names in my story, they come to life very easily and digestibly in the picture Bible, and I have no affiliation with it or anything like that. It's just on my bookshelf, so pure recommendation there. Anyway, we got to all of that rant because we were talking about man as a custodian for nature, and that man could modify nature and make it improved from what it actually was. That in our kind of arrogance and pride, we decide how nature can be made better. Instead of millions of years of evolution, we just do it ourselves. So I think that's it's a double-edged sword, really. While the idea of global warming is a political hot potato, and this idea that at times romanticize nature, or organic. I can go on a huge other rant, but some of the ideas that science bastardizes anything that remotely has to do with nature, and if you dare think that man can do anything better, then you're part of the problem, and you just need to go drink some herbal tea and clean yourself under the breezes of the mountains. Well, I live in the mountains. I definitely, in the words of Ansel Adams, have gone to my sanctuary and recharged my spirit and my soul amongst the trees. So I think have a fair thing to say. As much as anyone, I appreciate the sanctuary that nature can be, but I also appreciate that what we think of as the sanctuary of nature was much more tenuous, back between that same 250 years ago, when the age of reason and enlightenment came along, and Mendel famously with his peas, but farmers began to say, hey, these crops did better when it got really dry. If we breed for that characteristic, if we only let them breed with one another, we'll get crops that do better, either cold or too wet or too dry, or you can evoke certain desirable characteristics by just doing selective breeding. Same with the Bible story, the speckled and spotted calves. When the son-in-law knew that he was working and that those were going to be his, all of a sudden in 7 years, the majority of the herd was speckled and spotted because he had bred for, he's working with the animals. The father-in-law is just kind of sitting back going, hey, look at how good I got it. He's the one out there breeding the animals, and he makes sure that the speckled and spotted get the best feed and pasture and access to the water and all that. They get every advantage, and they thrive because of it. And so it works out pretty good for him. And while we laugh at that idea of kind of shepherded nature, it has and will continue to go on all around us. And for every horror that there is about additives and that we need just organic food, remember that for many who may be watching this, in your lifetime, there hasn't been a significant worldwide famine or American famine. Things like crop failure don't even occur to our younger generations because they've never even known that they can happen. And they can, that's still a thing. And largely they haven't. One, because we've accessed the underground aquifers, and there's certainly questions to be answered on whether we're protecting those, what may truly be, for Americans, our greatest national treasure, or whether we are squandering them. And I'm not here to argue one particular point. I just think about these kinds of things that don't necessarily get talked about in the news, or even come up as really top topics of conversation. But when you're leveling a plane and about to harvest it, and you're thinking about gardens and what you're going to do with the space that you have, that's why simulations, even if they're just a simple Minecraft game, can help. All right, what do I want this world to look like? And as we watch it change, hopefully the change isn't that a creeper comes along and blows me up, but as we watch it change and hopefully grow with some increasingly complex forms, what are the things that we want to cherish and preserve? Is it that little grove of trees? Are these couple that I put torches on top of a dirt hill enough? I kind of think that eventually we can do better than just a dirt hill here. But does the top of that and having some tree, even if we build a tower around it, do we keep a little parkland up there? I don't know. We'll see. But that's the incredibly long-winded but time-filling chat about how we modify a world to make it better in our eyes, and that isn't necessarily sacrilege to say, oh, how dare you even think that you could do better than pure nature. Well, in the sense that it will be useful and accessible, and hopefully not eventually blown up by creepers because it was too shaded for them to not form. Yeah, we can do a little better than nature, and more importantly, we can set it up so that the beautiful things about nature, such as a big tree is amongst just a whole bunch of oaks where the big ones kind of get lost in the middle. We can kind of showcase those and make them more accessible to ourselves, and anybody else that comes along. So maybe we'll try to do that a little bit. A little bit of an arboretum if folks are in places where they have access to an arboretum, a tree garden, so to speak, or just well-established old parks in cities that have been cared for by a gardener or caretaker, somebody that has pruned and valued and prized the more mature trees and done their best. Golf courses a lot of times become that. Recently, as I was just starting up this series, the Masters was being played in Georgia, and the grounds for the Augusta National Golf Course, I believe it was a tree nursery. It was a nursery of some kind, and I think it was a tree nursery when they bought it. And they recognized that whether it was smaller plants or trees or whatever, there were a number of varieties of trees around, and they used what would continue to grow around as what would become truly a showpiece of not just golf. There's plenty of gorgeous golf courses, but if you watch closely, you may hear in the broadcast that the individual holes are named for different plants, trees, flowers, however they name them at Augusta. But those become multi-purpose shrines of nature, and trees in kind of horticulture definitely have that imprint of the species that we know and prize today, whether it's just for beauty or whether it's for products. Those have all been shaped by breeding along the way. And so when we say GMOs are awful, blah 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 blah, well, you have to be a little more clear. And my European friends, if you guys want to chime in here, I know there's a lot more sensitivity to GMOs in Europe. There's a harder pushback, but I look at it in often the terms of the lack of failures. We don't, even with the questions of what modifications should do, and I'm a huge fan of transparency and visibility, right? What goes into the food that we eat should be known, but be careful when you hate on big agribusiness because they have tried to enhance their yields along the way of enhancing reliability and some of those kind of things, because while it's fun to have a boogeyman, the trade-off is that you can only begin to, and what I'll call nitpick, about the additives in your food if you have food to eat, and it doesn't take too many generations to get back to certainly the rationing, that's brought on by wars and economy. Here in the Great Depression, between the World Wars, we were intentionally destroying produce of our farms because we wanted to try to restore our economy, and we couldn't get prices, so they were trying to artificially introduce scarcity. How crazy is that? You got soup lines and bread lines of people that can't afford food, and you're telling farmers, go plow under these crops. We need to raise the prices so that these people need to work again. It's crazy how, as a society or global society, we get to some of the conclusions that we've reached over the years. But it doesn't mean that application of intelligence or science or new techniques to whether it's crops or animals or anything else, that those are necessarily bad things. They often have very good results. We just need to be watchful for unintended consequences and not become so dependent that we can't pull ourselves away if that should happen. So that's my justification for some manicured gardens, long as it was. But now we got a big flat field, and we didn't have dead air while we did it. And without a real source of licensed music, I kind of left to that. So this time, just trying to think, why don't we... I've got so much dirt I want to fill out a little ways. Let's go here. One, I liked our dimension. So let's go 5, right? We'll just push on this way. And I should let's get ahead so I don't fall into one of the caves that's out there. So I think we're just going to plop down and as quickly as possible define our big farm. With our mostly level space there, I think we can do animals kind of in here and cheat downwards so that we don't have to just keep building up. That will eventually put over there. If we spread out our oak trees and kind of grow farms, we'll have plenty of room to do apiary work, building off in that direction. So let's see how far out we need to go here, and if I've allowed enough space. Man, it just goes forever. Yeah. Move, cow. Okay, so that would be the length of our field. Let's do that. Then one, two, three, 4. Okay, so if that was the rest of our walkway, we would then have 1, 4. This would be a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a path. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a field. 1, 2, 3, 4. What am I missing? Did I just not allocating enough space? We've got path, one more set, 1, 2, 3, 4. Irrigation, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Irrigation, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 more for our return path. So that gives us our width. And we can just cut back across here, pile up more dirt that we don't need. Have a nice big field close at hand. or the pig coming to visit. Get some more stone. All right. Now this should at least get us framed. This was our other stone interior line. Kind of like to, if possible, use up the stone in our digging. Get all the dirt. We'll probably have just another double chest or something that we need. We can fill in this little hole here. I think there's one over on the opposite side. Which, by and large, then we'll have the dirt part done with, and can finish up the building and the torches. When we get the groundwork laid here, and by that I just mean that we'll put in the paths, we'll do the outline, we'll fill in all the dirt that we need. As I said, always balance is nice. We don't want to overly work on any one project too terribly long. So I think at that point, I'd like to jump back into those caves. If we can knock out a bunch of coal, we'll maybe use our new space down at the bottom of our stairway to create a bank of furnaces. And this may not be the last time we see of these. Once we've got our dimensions, if I missed, did I miss? Oh my gosh. Oh, maybe we'll do 3 on the side. What I was trying to say, that may be the path of least resistance. Although I'm talking about, hey, why don't we just, I know this is getting a little combat-y. Why don't we just do less until we have all these set up? Because what I was trying to get to was, if we can even spare enough resources, I'd kind of like to do that in stone brick, not the cobble this time. We did it in cobble. I spared you guys a little extra time last time. Hang on one second. I think I may sneeze, and I'm going to take a sip. The sneeze hasn't come yet, and I also haven't yet get muted. Hang on one second. I'm just going to blow. Oh, thanks for your patience. As I was saying, allergies have been kicking up into spring mode, and I'm not super prone to allergies, but it's enough to make the nose run every once in a while. So what I've been in the midst of trying to say is, we may get this laid out for visualization's sake, and we may yank it all back up again just to put down some stone brick. We have done this with cobble, and it's not awful, but we have to look at this for a long time time, and I don't want to. We're gonna have a cobbled stairway forever. That I'm not gonna go back in and replace. I don't think we may supplement it with more user-friendly access points once we've been established for a while, if we are lucky enough to live so long. But I'm not gonna push for that. What I do think, if we, with all these caves, coal shouldn't be a problem. You've now been teased with the glory that can become a fortune pick. We're going to live in a world where we got loads of coal. So why not, if we're going to improve on nature, as we've talked about way too long, in the course of muting, I didn't even bother to look at how close we were. I think we're approaching the 2-hour mark, but not quite there yet. Hopefully we can get these lines in. That would be a nice break. I know that will then make this officially a boring episode, but for me, it's going to be a fun day because we'll then switch out and go somewhere. And we did go into a cave. We chopped down some trees. We fought a husk. We not just dug dirt, but I appreciate we've done quite a bit of that. So from here, now if these don't line up, we're going to be in big trouble. This should be irrigation. Cow, you're going to end up in the ditch. Warning you now. Cow. We just, again, if we can get this roughed in, and I'm not even super committed to the point of doing the torches yet. Maybe we'll, even before we worry about like banks of stuff, we'll start cooking some stone so we can get a row of aerial torches with about 70 total stone bricks. We can seal off the ends and do the torches above the water. And at that point, we can fill it in, and all the rest of this can then just, we can have crops in around and just swap out the blocks decoratively around them. But even while I could do extra torches in the air above later, I don't really like working out of the water and trying to, walk through the plants and all that to get the torches up and all that once they've been planted. And for that reason, I think we'll just try to get our roughing in, get one crop, wheat going for sure. Maybe can't recall if it was carrots or potatoes we got extra, but one or the other we found on the ships and had not quite a dozen, maybe a couple 4 wide rows of whatever else we can plant. So we can get some growth going and begin to answer our future food needs, and then be free of all this for a while. So let me just kind of go through the soothing goodness. Not too painful this time. I think, overall less maybe less leveling work. We had to do a lot of digging there, but we didn't have that gully that we overhung on the back end to fill in, and that always takes a lot of time. Plus, we've done it once now recently, and that I think speeds things up a little bit. We're gonna have to decide what looked better or not. And I do think our decision to use stone bricks will ultimately add a little bit more time. We have to break up 4 stacks or so worth of stone, but in the end, that's something I'll be willing to sacrifice over time to get this a little bit better than just cobblestone walls and things like that. Roads. You're basically putting loose stone together to fill an area, and I think we can do. It's, as I named one of my my world's dry stone wall. That's a building technique, northeastern United States, certainly in the British Isles. I would imagine others as well. It's essentially where if you're in fairly rocky country, there's an old farmer saying that cold ground grows stones, and it's the freeze-thaw cycle. When you have loose soil and it freezes and then gets soft and wet and damp again as it thaws, rocks will be pushed upward to the surface as a result of that action. And so when you're farming in those types of areas, you have to periodically go out and walk your fields and gather the rock. It's kind of like turning over the soil or clearing away the chaff of the previous year's stuff, or plowing that under to eventually enrich the soil. But however you're dealing with it, you got some preparation work to do for your fields, and one of those in that rocky area is to pull the rocks. Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out, if you're picking up rocks in a field year after year and you gotta put them somewhere, you might as well just use those to walk to the edge and build up the walls that will divide those fields from your neighbors or whatever. So you kind of make it a tradition to go out, and it's in a part looking over your own land and planning for what may be challenges in the season. You're also getting a chance to socialize and kind of stretch the legs and all that for a longer planning season by first walking and lifting out any stones that may have popped to the surface and piling them up onto the walls. And also, dry stone walls not having mortar, if animals and things try to use them as climbing, or kids, or a bush or something grows up alongside, they can get scattered a bit. Not, usually the whole wall won't go, but there may be spots where one lower rock has worked loose and has fallen, and the others around it need to be piled back up. It needs to be just kind of stacked in such a way that it will be stable and secure, not teetering and devolving into a just a loose pile of stones that anything can come and go over. So I don't know that this cobble is purely dry stone cobble, or if there's the fact that we can build walls and things of it would imply that there's some mortar, but come on, man, it's, even when mossy, it's not that pretty. So we'll go, but now we kind of got our footprint. So win-win there. We've got quite a bit in the iron. We may need to cook some food, but we're going to start anyway on that. Let's see, did we... we bought enough wiggle room. We don't need a spare dirt chest yet. Woohoo! So, drop those away. Let's put these seeds away. Okay. Oh, and we need shovels too, clearly. Let's get you out of the way. What I'd like to do is just get down, oh man, briefly enough to check out our space again. And I think we'll, hang on 1 second, let me just check the time. Oh, loads of time. I should have told me I was rushing things. I do think we'll kind of wrap up pretty quickly here, but since we're going downstairs anyway, let's get one more. And you may wonder, hey, you got 8 furnaces, isn't that enough? Why 9? Well, I'll tell you why 9. 9 furnaces in a bank, to me, work as well as anything because of fuel and things that you want to cook. When we get going and we're creating blocks of coal, those function in units of 9. And when we're dividing up ores and things, where we may not just have 9 full stacks, we can then spread them out across 1 full row of our inventory is 9. And so we can balance out piles of things to cook once we have a full bank of furnaces. And I've just found that works out pretty well for a system to cook things. And again, we're not going to have enough fuel for this for quite a while, but this is already backfired. How do I? Five. Why are we so off? Oh, is it because that didn't balance out? Sorry, guys. We're going to have to eventually fix this. That. Not this. I was like, oh, this is all perfect. It's a little triangle, and it's symmetrical, and it's going to be glorious. It'll fit right in the space. And then I'm like, wait, why? That was why I had to go over there and look at shapes. I'm sorry I wasn't talking. I was just trying to figure out what could possibly be going wrong. Like, a triangle is a triangle is a triangle, and here you are not working. This is going to be our bank of furnaces, and this may just take up our last little bit of time. We'll need, what were these? Those were slabs. Was this a stair? That's a stair. That's a stair. So all we need to do is half slab, move all these out 1. Let's just try this. So if we go here, here, nope, that's not what we want. here, 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 there. I apologize. I thought we were kind of, past all this, but it's gonna be all right, I think. Now how? Okay, so yeah, now all that. This one will go out here, and maybe do we? I think we could leave it at that. We'll kind of let that grow on us, and then if we want to or feel we need to, we can come back down with additional half slabs to fill in the offside. But hopefully that makes it clear. Sorry, I'm just talking through all that, just trying to make sure it came through as intended. So we want our stairs. And now we're just gonna boom, 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 back and forth, boom, boom. I don't like the odd number. Where did we lose one? Anybody see a missing stair? There it is. So, I think those would be better served with an extra set. If I'm really honest, I don't think the one does it. So let's just go get the last three. That was kind of an unintended little project, but it's the simple things that make all the difference. We don't need to just settle when all it takes is moving over a couple pieces of stairs. So forgive the motion sickness, but we'll just do one more little run. The good news is we have these steps, and so we can go pretty quickly. Alright, so boom, boom, and boom. Now, do we have to push those back? We'll save that. If we need to, we can run that whole section back and step it up one more later. I know we'd planned to do some more work. Now I say that, I knew we were going to do that. Now that I look at it, I remember we were going to finish that up, but not in this episode, because this episode is going to climactically end with a climactic climbing of the stairs. And then as we go, I will prepare you guys that in the next episode, we are going to look to venture forth into the world and have a bit more adventure while our stone cooks. I think between saying goodbye and starting back up the next one, we'll hopefully get these 8 pieces cooked. As I have said, I don't intend to play outside of this world, and that's not going to change. So we'll do our cooking, but as we gear up here with a boat, maybe 2 boats just in case, and anything. I'm up to 13 arrows, but I still don't think that's enough. I think that's good, right? We got a bed, we got some food, we got our tools, and we got a spare boat in case we lose it. Two more to go here. Let's just grab another stack so we can do this before we forget about it. Not that I even plan to intend to take a super long break on this one, but it is important to make sure that you as an audience and I as a content creator keep moving and active. And in this sense, I'm going to do just that. Get up and in the traditional sense, maybe do a couple stretches and just get the blood pumping a little bit, and then come right back. And maybe we'll take a longer break after that. So we will see you back here in just a moment. Let's save and quit because as I've said, between games, I do like to close out the Minecraft application. Playing on a laptop as I do, I think that just helps overall performance. So there we go. Thanks again, as always, for joining. Hope to see you back here for the next episode. And as always, if you don't mind, go ahead and click the like, drop a comment, let me know what you're enjoying, or if not, what you'd like to see done differently. And we'll go from there. See you next time. Bye now.